Thank you for tuning into our podcast today from the Darkhorse's mouth. Today's episode is Ask Me Anything, answering your burning questions. And we're doing something a little bit different today. We've got Dan in the hot seat. So It's what you've all been waiting for. At the end of every podcast, we have an Ask Me Anything segment. So what we're doing today is we're having our frequently asked questions that some people write in and ask. And you're going to answer them for us. How's that sound?
Sounds exciting. And I also think maybe I need to have you start doing the intro. I think you're far better at it than I am.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, excited to see what these questions are and hopefully have some good answers for you.
Yeah, and the goal always is to help our audience and help them get to that point where they are successful. And so you are the right man for the job. So our first question comes from Ryan S. I wish I knew what state you were in, Ryan, but I don't. If you're out there, thank you for listening. What are some of the biggest challenges that you had from a marketing perspective during the first year of opening your independent agency? So that's our first question. I think what we should do is just kind of break these down into some little bite-sized pieces because that's very, very broad. There was quite a bit happening when that happened. So let's start with something easy. Did you have a client base or did you start from scratch?
So started completely from scratch. We did have a client base, but that wasn't our client base per se. That was sold back to farmers, so it became farmers' client base. And so yeah, we started over. We started from zero, and I had thought when leaving that everything was built on not counting on that client base to follow me ever. Mm-hmm. I figured that at some point there was a 1-year non-solicit, and we were going to make sure that we adhered to that to the letter. And if after that 1 year, if we were able to bring some clients with us, great. But the mindset was always to be able to do it without that.
From a marketing aspect, were you handling everything yourself or did you outsource?
So initially, we handled, and you want to handle as much yourself as you can, because when you're starting from zero, you have expenses and you have no revenue.
Yeah.
So
That's a hard game to play.
Yeah, it's certainly a hard game to play. So you want to be able to handle as much as you can yourself, and then as you grow, you got to do basically a cost-benefit analysis on outsourcing. And at some point, it does make sense to outsource, and there's other situations to where maybe it's something that doesn't fall into your skill set. So it's good to outsource the skill set.
For example, something that falls outside of your skill set. Give us an example.
Yeah. So I think that, and this is actually going back to before I had made the move to independent, but it'll prove the point. So I used to do a lot of direct mail. And and when myself and Trevor, who's still with us today, when we started, it was just me, him. I think it was just me and him. We would spend 2 weeks. Took us 2 weeks to fold 4,000 mailing pieces. Put stamps on them, and then of course send them out.
Wait, did you have the sticky stamps or did you have to lick the stamps?
Oh, I certainly wasn't licking any stamps. I think I might have had like a water, thing you put water, and I think that kind of helped the process along. But it got to a point once there was revenue generated that us spending the time doing that didn't win the cost benefit analysis battle, in which case we ended up finding a mailing house that would do that for us. And, of course we paid for that, which then it made sense to outsource.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. What was your first campaign or initiative that actually worked?
So there's been a lot over the years, but it all comes down to one premise. Like you've heard in the business and finance world, that cash is king. Mm-hmm. Well, in marketing, data is king. And so the first thing, that you need to do is you need to find a data source within your target market that has, valid contact data, information, et cetera. And so the first initiative, or one of the first initiatives, or all the initiatives that actually work, are the ones where you're able to locate a data source within your target market that allow you to effectively market to those people and then convert those deals. And so one of the first initiatives that we had related to that was related to the multifamily and apartment industry, to where I was sending out some email marketing that had some pretty favorable results.
Awesome. Let's see. Another question. Do you think marketing for an agency today is easier or harder than when you started?
So I don't think it's easier or harder. I think it evolves, and I think it always evolves. And so what was working yesterday isn't necessarily what's working today. And if you don't continue to evolve your marketing system and your marketing approach, then eventually you will have problems. And so I think it's an evolution. If you're not constantly evolving, then it's certainly going to get harder as it grows. And trends come back, just like fashion has cycles. I see some of the same things in marketing, where, email marketing, at least for me, was real big, and now it's become more challenging, right? But picking up the phone and calling people, that's always been a good way to do business, but it's becoming, there's less people doing it, from my point of view. And now that we're doing it, we're creating results. So again, I think it evolves. And I also think that with the evolution of AI, that's where you're going to see a big, massive growth in marketing results.
Very good. So let's tie this back into the question as a whole. So what was the biggest challenge that you had from a marketing standpoint in your first year?
So the biggest challenge from a marketing standpoint in the first year, it's, the marketing systems that I had developed before, I had went independent, were my marketing systems. And so it was, really, I just took what I had and then I put it in a system where I had more options, freedom, creativity. And so those would expand. But I think that the challenges became, the investment piece of it, because the marketing is expensive. And I think actually, now just thinking through the question, the long-term most valuable marketing is relationship building through associations, networking, centers of influence, etc. And when we had, started and made the move into the independent world, our ability to network and create adoption as far as the services that we offered, because there's really no restrictions, grew exponentially. And so it took time to build those relationships. So to answer the question, I think the biggest challenge is just developing those networks or expanding on the networks that you had.
Okay.
That we had.
Awesome. Ryan, there it is. Biggest challenge.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for the question, Ryan. You ready for the next question?
Let's go.
Okay.
Round 2
from Beth O. Was there a single moment that flipped the switch for you to turn from a farmer's agent to an independent agent?
So there was. And before I get to that single moment, I think there's probably value in what led up to that moment. So, I was a farmer's agent for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
First 4 years just wrote a ton of home and auto insurance. Then we had the downturn of 2008, which wasn't fun. But it was kind of the catalyst to get me into commercial insurance, which has been,
phenomenal,
super valuable. I mean, that's really where it's at long term. And that's where a significant amount of revenue can be generated. So very thankful for that. Going through that process, of course, 2008 wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for anyone. That's where compounded with that, experience maybe our first rate cycle to where rates are going up, and as an agent, I can't bring them down. Customers don't understand, and so it's like remove coverages, raise deductibles, whatever. Not a great solution. So that was frustrating the first time around. And then we get to probably like 2012. There's another, again, rate cycle in there, but we get to, let's see here, I think somewhere around 2012, right? And I had, in the commercial arena, been hyper successful. I built a staff of, I think, 9 employees at the time. Certainly did personal lines, but definitely commercial lines focused. And I had brought in, that team, and that team's income and revenue was based off of our success in the commercial market. And then through no fault of our own or anyone's, the company that we represented, they had gotten into a place in their business cycle where, they didn't want to write large property accounts. And so they facilitated that by pricing us out of the market. And so the revenue that was being generated and that our sales agents or producers were making money off of, and our, service agents were there to support, all of a sudden was impacted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, because there was a change in direction, the change in direction was like, we're going to just write a bunch of small policies. That was the direction from farmers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, great. I can shift, and just start, revamp the marketing to focus on that, because I still have my renewals. And then that same pricing was put forth towards all the renewals, and I was again losing revenue. I couldn't make good on the commitments that I had. I mean, you were there.
Yeah,
you remember that.
I do remember that.
That wasn't even the point, though. That wasn't even the single point. So that was, that was me trying to work and figure things out. And like, I can do this. I can switch to, I mean, Farmers was great. I love Farmers. They gave me my start. I wanted to, continue to grow and build with them. And then fast forward, I don't know, maybe a couple years later. My timeline might be off just a little bit, but fast forward a couple years later, or maybe a year later, and I'm sitting in one of our President's Council meetings, and I've got still have the issue with the commercial property, and now there's a new directive or target market as it relates to the personal lines. And I forget what it was called, but basically it's like, okay, we're going to be really competitive on this small segment of personal lines customers. And I was like, okay, great. So I was like, I've got, my bread and butter, the commercials is effectively decimated. And, the personal lines is not going anywhere. And I really, in that moment, I was like, you know what, by the time they figure life out, if I were to start over, I'll be back there. And my thought process is it'd probably take like 4 years for farmers to kind of run the business cycle and get to where they're at. And by then, from my point of view, I thought I could be back to where I was within 4 years. And so that was really the single moment that happened.
That you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever a fear around losing that cushy Farmers brand and not having that brand recognition backing you?
No, that was never really a concern, because in the independent world, I've got cushy brands like Travelers and Liberty Mutual and Nationwide, and I mean, you name it. I got a lot of cushy brands to kind of fall back on, and also the value too is like, when I was a Farmers agent doing all this marketing, I was marketing for farmers. When I sent out that Farmers logo with my name on it, and there's Farmers agent, 2 miles down the street, who's, a prospect got that, they'd go to the closest Farmers agent. So I would, the logo and the brand, great to get me started. I've got no name, I've got nothing. But once you're there, effectively, my marketing was branding farmers, and farmers, I was a benefactor, but, farmers and other Farmers agents were also a benefactor of that.
Sure. That's a good point. It's a good point. Okay. So was independence what you expected, or did it surprise you in good and bad ways?
I would say that it was more than I expected. I mean, it was, the creative world opened up to me, when you're in that that captive world, you're just, you're kind of focused on the direction of the captive. When you get outside of that, you look and you're like, the world just opens up to you.
Yeah.
So that was great. The growth was greater, more than I could have, imagined. And yeah, so the growth was good. Everything was, I had to work a lot,
Yeah.
but I expected that, I
Yes.
expected, with what my goals were, I was working 7 days a week.
Well, and
I think I still do. So
I was
I
going to
think
say,
that's just,
I don't think
I think I
that
just
has
like to work.
changed at all. Yeah, I think your vacation, like you go on vacations and you're still thinking about work. I'm like, go
Yeah,
on vacation.
5 days tops. That's all I
Yeah.
need.
Okay, so great. That was a good question there from Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Our next question comes from George W. With Darkhorse, who owns renewals? How do splits work? And how does that change as I grow?
Okay. So the renewals are, of course, owned by the Darkhorse agent. You own the book, name on the door, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
So let's stop at that one. So who owns the renewals? You just said that. Can you break down what owning renewals actually means for someone new to this world?
Well, I mean, they own the book of business. So,
Yeah.
owning the renewals is, we
Part
don't
of
own,
that.
we don't own them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it differs with some groups.
Yeah, I could see why, and again, I don't want to comment on, other group structures and that.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a difference in ownership and splits, and whose names on the door. I think the important thing to know is that Darkhorse is really the name in the background.
Yeah, we're powering.
We're powering it. If our name never gets mentioned to your customer or whatever, we're good by it. We're just the support in the background that's kind of making everything go, and it's already been battle tested, and it's what's allowed us to scale our retail brokerage to the level that it is, and so it's there for you in a support mechanism. But no, our Darkhorse agents own the book 100%.
Okay, and then how do splits work?
So it's 85-15 in favor of the agent out of the gate, and then that grows to a 90% 10% split. There are some caveats with some of our general agent programs where you actually get 100%.
Awesome. And then you mentioned, how does it change as I grow? So here's a good question kind of following that. So do you see agents tend to accelerate quickly once they hit a certain level?
So I think as far as agents accelerating quickly, I mean that 18-month part is a critical time. It just is, and that's because insurance is a game of singles and doubles. You're not hitting home runs, and so you're stacking commissions, and it takes a while for those commissions to stack. But once you hit that renewal period, that 18-month mark is really where you start to be like, okay,
this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, it's just like, I think it's, maybe this is why I'm doing it, but like, hey, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's very natural for everyone, but it's just due to the way that insurance works, why that 18-month time frame is there. I'll also say that, in working with agents and whatnot, I mean, you can tell pretty quickly one agent from another, like what that trajectory looks like, just by how fast things are getting done and their involvement in communication in the process.
Sure. And that's a good segue into this next little, how does Darkhorse's approach compare to other aggregators or clusters?
Yeah, so first thing is we're not an aggregator. So aggregators provide contracts and profit sharing. And of course, you need those to operate. So I always equate that to an insurance company saying, like, use us for our claims service. It's like, I hope that you have, claims, like, you don't win people on your claims service, you keep people on your claims service, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of look at the aggregator or the, contracts and profit share play. in that same capacity, like, of course, like if you don't have contracts, you can't operate. So of course we offer that. I think that what really sets us apart and makes us different is, okay, you've got the contracts, great. Hopefully, you're able to sell at some capacity, but then it comes to the scalability of the solution, and it comes to the operations, it comes to the support, the marketing support, all of the things that that impact or are roadblocks for an agent to kind of get to the next level. Because what ends up happening is you get to a certain point, and then you kind of plateau. And in my mind, you're either growing or you're dying. And the growing part takes a lot of shift and change of operations and how you do things. And those are things that we've already solved for, because our platform was developed through 10 years of all of that trial and error, operational change, et cetera, to be able to scale it. So, you're able to, our agents are able to come in and scale as big as they want to be out of the gate, and any challenges that they have, they've got an entire support system to solve those, and we're living it every day.
Yes.
So it's, we're not just hey, we offer this, we got a cool name, come join us.
Yeah.
It's we're living it every day in our retail brokerage. And so all of that Marketel intellectual property, et cetera, is at the disposal and to the benefit of the Darkhorse agent.
Yeah, that's true. There's a proven model that's sitting behind us every day, and it works. So, and we know it works, and we are there to support.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. If someone listening is considering joining, what's the best first step to get clarity on how Darkhorse works?
So I think the easiest thing is go to darkhorse.insurance.com, and we've got a nice little discover button. In fact, our new website's about to launch, which is actually pretty amazing.
Stay tuned.
I don't know if anyone cares about it but me, but it looks
care.
Cool. So you hit the discover button, and that'll set you up with what's called a deep dive, and all that is for you to get information and see what if it's for you or even for us in that capacity. It works both ways. What the what it is, and then we move on to the next step.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, good job.
Another one down.
Another one down.
Was that question?
That was question number 3.
Oh, question 3.
So we've got
not counting the sub questions.
Yeah, we've got a few more.
Don't worry, I got more energy.
Okay, good. All right, here's a good one from Sam L. He asks, or she, could be she. Sorry, Sam. In the first 90 days, what should I do weekly to build momentum fast?
Okay, so the first 90 days, what should you do weekly to build momentum fast? So nothing happens until a policy is sold. So 100% you need to market, and you need to be doing anything that's a revenue generating task, and try to limit your basically your non-revenue generating tasks as much as possible. I think that the other thing that you need to be super aware of are, what are your metrics? So what I mean by that is you're starting out and you've got $0 of revenue coming in. But guess what? You have expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you need to know what those expenses are, what those monthly expenses are. And then what you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, how much money do I have saved to make this transition? And how long before that money runs out if I have no revenue coming in? So like, let's say, for example, it's a year, right? You could just have no revenue coming in, but your expenses, and still be sitting there in a year. Next step is you have to cut that in half. Okay, so that's 6 months now. That 6 months becomes your break-even point goal. Okay, so now that you have your break-even point goal, I got to break even in 6 months. Now you need revenue coming in, of course, right? Mm-hmm. So then the next thing you do is you look at your metrics, and the way you do that, I call it the power of 10. So you take, within your marketing system, 10 qualified opportunities, qualified is the key word.
Mm-hmm.
And of those 10, how many do you close on average? And of those close, how much revenue does it generate? So if you have 10 and you close 3, and each of the 3 is $1,000 in revenue, I'm just making this up for easy math. It's $3,000 a month. Okay, then you balance that against your expenses, your break-even point. And if 10 qualified opportunities isn't enough to get you there, then you need to increase those qualified opportunities so that you're meeting that break-even point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, in order for that math to work, you've determined that you need 50 qualified prospects, okay? So now you're at that point. So by your math, 50 qualified prospects will get you to your break-even in 6 months. Now, I have a saying that things always take twice as long and work half as well as you think that they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So within that in mind, now you need to double that number.
Oh.
So your
Get
50,
busy.
your 50 just became 100. So what you do is you take your 12 months, whatever that is, could be 2 years, whatever it is, and you cut that in half. So that's your, takes half as long.
Yeah.
And then you want to double the amount of opportunities you need to create based off of your math. And if you do that, you'll be okay. And then, of course, all of your actions need to be in line with achieving that goal.
Okay, so all of that in mind, what kind of mindset does someone in that first 90 days need to have in order to make that happen?
So from my standpoint, it's you have to have a whatever it takes mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like, okay, I don't care what it takes, no excuses. I'm going to get it done. And then I think you always have to ask yourself the question, what am I committed to?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that answer can be quite a bit different for everyone. And if you answer that question, it gives you pause, and, you need to think through that a little bit, because there's always a way to make it happen. There's people making it happen every day. I made it happen, but it wasn't without a significant amount of time, energy, effort, hard work,
Mm-hmm.
and a mindset that's like, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah. Okay. And then talk to me about consistency and being consistent over being creative. I think some people may think that to get this, I have to be super creative and do all this crazy marketing.
So I think
cards.
creativity is important, but you cannot win if you're not consistent. I mean, you need to be consistent in everything. And if you just draw it back to what I told you before about the metrics, like, you're not hitting those if you're not consistent. The creativity is what will take you to a level beyond that. So your creativeness will allow you to, 2x, 5x, 10x based off of your consistency. Mm-hmm. Like, the consistency is the foundation, and in my mind, you can't win without it.
Cool. Where do you think that most new independent agents spend most of their time doing, or what do you think they focus on that could just be the wrong thing to focus on at that time?
Where I've seen agents really make mistakes is if they focus on like paid lead sources only. Mm-hmm. Right? It's pretty common, you're starting off and it's easier, right? I pay you money, you send me leads, I close leads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like a real simple, path to success.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of it is, if that's all you do, like, you're going to be sitting there 6 months later, like, frustrated, and you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So while there's a place for, kind of those paid lead sources and investment, while you're doing that, you also need to develop relationships, one-to-many marketing sources. Mm-hmm. So one-to-many marketing sources, anything where you can go one place and they bring you a lot of prospects. So one example is mortgage or even commercial lending. They're one person you can develop a relationship with that is working with a multitude of different people in your target market that they can send you if you build that one relationship. So it's associations. Associations are great because they have, you've got your target market, and everyone in your target market is in that association, and everyone that touches that target market is part of that association. So you develop those relationships, and long term, that's where really you're going to get the lift in your business. The challenge is that takes time.
Yes.
That's going to take you 6 to 18 months, and you have to be involved. And the other challenge too, and this is another thing that's, common for new agents, even common for myself, is the long-term wins are in the things that you're uncomfortable doing. And that's the hardest part. Is a lot of times, I'm naturally more introverted than extroverted. I don't necessarily love going to networking groups and associations and all that, and I'm comfortable with it now. But at one time I was uncomfortable. And it's really you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. In constantly putting yourself outside your comfort zone, because that's where the real growth is.
Yeah. Do you think prioritize marketing, carrier appointments, or relationships first?
Well, you can't operate without the carrier appointments, right? You get all the marketing coming in, and you're not going to build put them in your own insurance company. At least hopefully you're not going to. I'm sure some people have done that, but you need the carrier appointments, and I think a very close second or at the same time is of course the marketing, and then the third one what was the third one? Mindset.
Marketing, carrier appointments, and relationships.
And then the relationships you're building, kind of, you're building as you go, but you can kind of build those on the back end, right? Like you might not have the relationship up front with the carrier. You might not have the relationship with the marketing. You need the carrier appointments. You're developing the marketing, and that's done through relationships.
Okay. So if you wanted to give one of these new agents a 90-day challenge, something measurable, what would it be?
Well, as what I spoke to earlier, it was you got to know your metrics. You need to what are your expenses? What's your break-even point on those expenses? How much revenue do you need to generate to get there? And then how are you going to generate that revenue? And I would have that all figured out, let's call it before the 90 days starts. And then your 90-day goal becomes, then what I would do is I would take that 6 months or whatever it is, I break it into milestones. And then my 90-day goals would be based off of those milestones. And again, like I said before, things always seem to take twice as long, work half as well. So, it wouldn't hurt you to put a goal even a little bit above that.
That's so true. You love to set those lofty goals.
Yeah, just keep moving the goalposts.
I know. All right, cool. That takes care of that question. Thank you. That was a really good question.
That was a lot of questions.
Sorry. Well, we have a lot of questions. Todd D has a question. What's the biggest mistake people still make when going independent, and how do you dodge it?
So again, I think that I think we've talked about a lot of these, but I think again the biggest mistake is well, I hate to say biggest mistake. I think one of the pitfalls can be relying on paid leads. I think spending your time on tasks that don't generate revenue. And everything doesn't have to be perfect. Like you don't have to have this. If you're worried about what your chair looks like and what your office space looks like that's probably a problem. You can operate. A lot of people aren't coming in the office anymore. You can operate off of Zoom with a background. So, I think the goal is you got to keep expenses as low as possible. And then once you start generating revenue and you get more comfortable, then I think that you can start to expand a little bit. But I think it's just making sure that you're focused on, again, the things that are generating revenue. You're focused on marketing. And you don't worry about some of the other things that really don't matter as much, at least in the short term.
Sure.
Once you're up and going and you're cash flow positive, then some of the other things, like I made a joke, but not a joke about the chair, and those things can evolve over time.
Yeah. Yes. And how do you help new agents avoid repeating those pitfalls through Dark Horse?
So I mean, we have a system. It's proven, battle tested is kind of like this new phrase I like to I
I
like to
like
say.
that, battle
Battle
tested.
tested, yeah, it's battle tested. So as far as avoid the pitfalls, I mean, again, like I said before, we could tell pretty quickly just based on the amount of communication we're getting, and um, the speed at which things are getting done, if there's going to be a challenge or not. And I think it's just I don't think it's avoiding, because it's just naturally going to happen, and unfortunately a lot of the same things happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could sit here and say don't rely on paid leads, and someone's going to still rely on them until they get to the point where it's like, okay, great, now I have to do this. I think it's us identifying that and then providing the support, coaching, and training if needed to work, and resources to kind of work them through that challenge or plateau.
Yeah. Our last question
Last
of
question.
the segment.
All right.
If I join today, I like this question. In 5 years, what does my business life look like? And this is from Sarah H. So, I mean, that's pretty broad. It really depends on the individual. What do you want your life to look like, right? But how about like if someone signs up today, what does their first year look like? Let's start at the first year.
So I think that the first year, I mean, if we're talking, I mean, the question was specific to Darkhorse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the value in the first year is all of that, you know, guesswork, and that as far as setting up an infrastructure and all that's already
Done.
it's already taken care of. Like a lot of our competitors, if you will, they'll take you shopping. And
Yeah.
they'll say, "Hey, here's an agency management system, and hey, here's your phone system aisle, and here's all these aisles, and how those things actually work together, and how good the individual is at putting them all together, have varying degrees of success."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's already done. Contracts are there, infrastructure's built, and really you're just focused on marketing, and growing, and things of that nature. So I think in the first year, I mean, look, it's not if you're doing it right, it's going to be challenging because you're going to want to continue to grow and build and develop and all that type of stuff, and there's just naturally going to be challenges along with that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the first year is operationally, systems, contracts, all that. I mean, that's all set up far before the first year. In the first year, really, you're just looking to get to kind of that first major milestone, which is your renewals.
Yeah. And this may answer my next kind of sub question here is at what point do they really start feeling the benefits of being independent?
Yeah, so I think feeling is the key word in that question, and again, I think that's in the well, actually, I take that back, because you're feeling it like right
Right
away.
away. You're like,
Yeah,
I've got all
well,
these
yeah, when you
options.
go from
Yeah.
like one option,
Yeah.
to all of a sudden you've got a multitude of different options, like you're feeling that right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that what I was referring to is like once you start getting those residuals, once you get
Mm-hmm.
to kind of that 18 months, just seems to be the uh the time that things are like there's a little weight off your shoulders, not the whole weight, but a part of it, because like you're going to be good and everything's good. It's kind of at that time period.
Sure. Okay. And what kind of income or lifestyle shift do you see by year 3?
So if you're well, this is a two-part question. So from an income standpoint, I mean, I think that you should be able to get to wherever you ended in your captive world, or even if you're working for another independent agent from you got a book of business and you want to go do it on your own, and we also work with those. But I think you can get back to where you are within 18 months, like, and so then by year 3 was the question, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so then by year 3, I don't think that there's any reason why, you can't at minimum 2x that, 3x that.
Yeah.
And again, if you're doing it right, and you're moving fast, yeah, not an issue.
Awesome. So going back to the original question, By year 5, what does my business or life look like?
So by year 5, and actually, let me back up to the last question because I think I answered part 1 and not part 2
Oh,
about
yeah.
the
Oh,
lifestyle.
yeah,
But
we did the income.
yeah. So from a lifestyle standpoint, is if you're doing it right, it should be the exact same. Because your goal, again, if you're doing it right, and everyone's different, everyone's different. So I mean, doing it right is, I guess in the eye of the beholder, if I want to say that. But if you're doing it right, you're reinvesting every single cent that you make back into the business, back into marketing to generate more revenue until you get to the point to where you can't possibly spend all of your money. So that's the goal. So if you're doing it right, your lifestyle doesn't change. And eventually that small, I don't think it's a sacrifice, but that small amount of reinvestment over the next couple of years is going to further, further your growth exponentially. So then now back to the original question, which
5 years.
is 5 years, what's my business or life look like? I think that, obviously it's dependent on the agent. But I think that if you were to just look at what you're doing today, the way I'd answer it, because it could be different for everyone, right? But the way I'd answer it is, and I guess we'll relate this, we could relate to both captives and independents, but what you're doing today, if you take that same level of effort that you're doing today, and then you put it in a model that gives you, more options, more creativity, etc., and allows you to scale, same level of effort. I don't see any reason why your business, I don't see any reason why you can't 5x where you're at within 5 years, maybe 3 to 5. Try not to, try to be conservative, but yeah, I think same level of effort where you're at today, 5 years from now, I think 3x minimum.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Same level of effort. You're already doing it. If you just put that in.
Yeah, and the systems and scalability makes a difference, because at one point, just as you know, when then we started out, we started having accounting challenges, and we started having, obviously, you market, now you need staff. Staffing's a massive challenge to being able to scale, and having good people. And then once you have the staff, now you've got a big infrastructure cost. And you're like, oh man, what do I do with this infrastructure cost? Because it's eating up my profit margin, and the list goes on. So having a solution for that out of the box, there's a significant amount of value in that and the scalability that it brings.
Yeah. And how different is that 5-year vision compared to what you thought it would be when you started?
So my like I had said, I think at the very beginning, I thought that it would take, farmers 4 years to figure life out. And I thought that within that 4 years that I'd be back to where I was. So, and we 10x'd within 7 years. So it took us 7 or 8 years to 10x our results with farmers that we left. And so it's exponentially greater.
Yeah.
I never even in my wildest dreams did I think that we would have the level of success that we've had, not only within the original retail branch, that's the foundation for Darkhorse, but also in the creativity that was then opened up and allowed us to create all of these additional companies that provide support for our retail branch and for other agents in the industry.
Yeah, awesome. That was our last question. You did good.
All right.
In the hot seat.
All right.
That wasn't
wasn't too bad. That was fun. I hope everyone got a lot of value and clarity out of those answers, and of course happy to help, even if you're have your own shop already, perfectly happy. If there's anything I can help or clarify, you can just send us an email through, I don't even know what it is, contact@darkhorseinsurance.com. Do we
I
have
can't
that?
remember. I can't remember. We'll give it to you at the end.
I should have thought that
We
through
will
before
yeah,
before we started.
We'll give it at the end.
But yeah, happy to help. That's what we're here for. Regardless of whether it's our platform or you're with someone else's. I just like to help, and I enjoy mentoring and coaching and stuff like that. So.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast from the Darkhorse's mouth. If you want to learn more about us, go to darkhorseinsurance.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Darkhorse Insurance Brokers, and email any questions to podcast@darkhorseinsurance.com. Thank you.